Welcome, Denzians of the Internet, to the Singularity best gaming podcast on the Internet.
Singularity?
Maybe I should reverse time and try that again.
No, I think it was good. It was good. But I have a question.
Yeah.
Is it Denzian or Denizen?
Both? I don't know.
I don't know. I've never actually said that word out loud, so...
Yeah, what did I say? I said Denzian, right?
Yeah, you said Denzian.
That's clearly what I think it is then, but I've never really thought about it.
All right. Well, listeners out there, let us know. I'm sure Jack will let us know when he hears this episode.
Speaking of Jack, good listeners, as you can tell, once again, you're stuck with me doing the introduction to episode 18 of the Best Games Period. Jack is not with us tonight, so Jack, get well, have fun, whatever it is you're doing. We'll see you next time.
It is Easter. He's probably busy doing Easter stuff.
Yeah. He's.
Maybe he's out on a date?
I hope so.
I don't know what kind of date you go on Easter, but...
I don't know, you probably just hop around from place to place. Yeah.
Maybe they go into a cave, and 3 days later they're just going to emerge.
Is this the time where we make a he is risen joke?
You just did it. That was good.
Yeah, that's terrible.
So what game are we talking about today?
Well, we're going to follow up last week's stellar episode of Red Dead Redemption with 2010's Raven-produced, Activision-published game Singularity.
2010? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Came out on PlayStation 3, 360, and Microsoft Games for Windows, or whatever they called that platform back then. And eventually...
It wasn't Steam?
I don't think it was at launch.
Huh.
But it was eventually. A fun side fact, I'm pretty sure this is the first game I played after Red Dead Redemption, so I think it's kind of interesting.
Whoa, that's funny.
Yeah. I didn't realize that till I was looking at the dates that they came out, and I was like, oh, yeah. I
guess that would
now.
make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
in the timeline.
In the timeline, yeah. Which makes no sense, really, honestly. So... if any of you listened to the previous podcast that Jack, Daniel, and I had... By the way, I'm Jeremy Brown, hanging out with Daniel Jones.
Hello.
Hi. And as we said, Jack is not here. But if you ever listened to the previous podcast or just listened to me rant on Twitter, you know that I kind of love this game. So we decided to put it on our list for one of the best games, period. A lot of people might not think it even belongs in the discussion. But sometimes we don't care what people think, and we are going to discuss it anyway, Daniel.
Yes, we are. Before we do that, how have you been last week?
Very busy, but good. Healthy, happy, upright.
Healthy and happy are good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Played some Salt and Sanctuary, but I think we'll get into that.
Yeah. How is your sodium intake these days?
I try to keep it fairly low. I've never really liked salt to begin with.
Before we get into Singularity, I want to talk about Salt and Sanctuary with you.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you haven't played Salt and Sanctuary, Salt and Sanctuary is a 2D side-scrolling action platformer in the vein of Castlevania, but it is structured almost to a T, just like a Dark Souls game. You level up with salt, and when you die, you lose all those salt, but you can go back and retrieve them. You have one chance. If you die again, they're gone forever. You have gold that... This is slightly different. You have gold that you buy items with that you do not lose completely when you die, but you do lose like 10% of it or something like that when you die. You have to pay some mysterious stranger who revives you and brings you back to your sanctuary. So you're seeing where all the name conventions are coming from. Bring you back to your sanctuary, which is like a bonfire in Souls, and that's where you can level up and buy new gear and new powers. You can even hire little helpful people to help you. So it looks on the surface like a Castlevania game. There are even some Metroidvania elements, some powers that you gain that help you gain access to areas that you previously didn't have access to. But with the combat system being much more familiar to like a Souls fan or something, it's a lot like a Souls game. How do you like it, Jeremy, as somebody who really likes Dark Souls?
I think the little bit I've played of it so far, I think it's awesome. I like the style, the 2D side scrolling, which is still cool and unique and kind of relates to the Soul games, and that even though it's 2D, you can go multiple different ways once you get past that first little area and start opening up doors. The game doesn't exactly tell you where you're supposed to go next, and you can end up in maybe a place that you're not quite ready for. I would say it's so close to a Souls game that if Bethesda had produced the Dark Souls games, they'd be suing this company right now.
It is very close. And from what I hear, some later areas actually look almost modeled after some areas in the Souls games. So that'll be interesting.
Even some of the characters the enemies that I've encountered early on, like the Bronze Knights, are a lot tougher to beat, and they're kind of like the Black Knights in the original Dark Souls.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not really bosses, but they're tough.
And they stay gone forever once you kill them.
Yeah.
They remind me, as somebody who played more Bloodborne than Dark Souls, they remind me of the hunters.
Yeah.
In Bloodborne.
Yeah, once you kill them, they stay gone. And like the other Souls games, if you go back to the Sanctuary or light a bonfire, so to speak, then it resets the entire stage and all the enemies respawn. So that's a good way to gain salt, especially early on, so you can kind of level up a bit. There's not a whole lot to the story that's revealed early on, so that's also similar, but that's cool.
Yep.
Basically, you start out on a boat and have to fight a huge monster that you're not supposed to beat, and you shipwreck, and you end up on this island, and there's something to do with a princess needing to get somewhere, and that's about as much of the story as I know.
Yeah. How far are you? How many bosses have you faced?
I've faced 3 bosses and defeated 2 of them, but I've put quite a few hours into it. You know me.
So you beat the Queen of Smiles?
Yes.
Yeah, she was a pain.
She was a pain. I restarted a few times. Right now I'm a level 20-something mage.
Oh, you restarted. Alright, that makes sense. What was because there's actually 2 different bosses that you could have faced next. So which one did you face next?
Give me some names.
I mean, which one was it the Mad Alchemist, or was it the something Kraken?
It was the Kraken thing.
Kraken thing. Okay.
No, I haven't found those poison blob things. I've seen some on the ground. I don't know if they're the same things that you end up fighting when you fight that boss.
Yeah, those things are a pain.
Yeah, that area where you kind of go all Tarzan up in the trees. There's a few of them that are on the ground there. Yeah, it's a cool game. It's well worth the $18.
It definitely is. I really like it. Probably what I like the most about it is the combat. Is that it's not just hack and slash combat. It's very deliberate. You have to really learn the patterns and the moves and anticipate what the bosses are going to do and what the lower level enemies are going to do before you really take them down.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. It's unique for 2D side-scrollers like that.
No matter what area you're in, you gotta pretty much pay attention and not let your guard down, because you never know.
I haven't gotten very good at parrying and riposting yet, but...
Yeah, me neither. And also, every once in a while, that circle icon comes up and you can do, like, that finishing move. I have no idea how to make that happen. I've only done it, like, 3 times.
That's the riposte. That happens when you riposte.
But I retweet a lot. I guess I'm not very good at reposting.
So anyway, Salt and Sanctuary is really good. Maybe someday we can do a Best Games period all about Salt and Sanctuary.
Is it on other platforms besides PS4 right now?
Right now it's only on PS4. It's coming to the Vita and PC soon.
Okay. Cool.
Yep.
So yeah, check it out if you can, for shizzle.
Yeah. It's from Ska Studios, who did Dishwasher and some other games that I'm not really familiar with. But from what I'm hearing, it's easily their best game. It's just a really cool game. I'm enjoying it a lot, and I'm glad I got you into it. But Dark Souls 3 is coming out soon.
Yeah, or
you didn't get your hands on the Japanese copy.
No, I didn't go out and buy a Japanese copy.
No.
The interesting thing is if you did that on Xbox One, you could actually play it in English, I've heard. I'm not sure if that's true on other platforms.
Yeah, I guess it's not true on PS4, but yeah, that's true on Xbox One. I don't know if that means that all the text is also in English. I don't know.
I think the text is in the subtitles, and the text, I believe, are still in Japanese.
You would think that they would give that option in the options, because usually in games in America anyway, in America, they give people the option to choose the language they want to play in. So wouldn't they do that in the Japanese version too? You would think.
Well, maybe that's what you mean as far as subtitles and voiceover?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I'm thinking you probably had to know enough Japanese to go in to change the voiceover to English, but...
Probably, yeah.
I'm sure there's a way to figure that out.
I'm sure YouTube could tell you how to navigate to it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm prepared to wait for that game, but I'm excited to play it when it comes out.
Yeah,
probably.
I'm pretty excited. I mean, there's going to be spoilers all over now, and there's people that have already finished the game and posted complete Let's Plays and streamed it and whatnot, but I don't have to watch those, so...
Nope. I've seen that opening area a few times, though. I should probably stop watching that. So, yeah, other than that, I saw Man of Steel. I keep wanting to say Man of Steel. Superman versus Batman.
What, Mr. I Hate Comic Movies?
I know. I saw it because my brother-in-law was here, and he is a big comic book fan, and we all had dinner Friday night, and I was like, you gonna see that movie? He's like, yeah, I just don't have anybody to go with, and I was like, I was like, well, I'll go with you. It's like, I'm not sure that I'm going to like it, but I'll go with you. He's like, yeah, let's do it. So we went at 10 o'clock Friday night. I got home at 1 o'clock. Went to bed at like 2:30 because I was playing Salt and Sanctuary when I got home. I was tired. I'm still tired. But it was okay. I didn't hate it as much as I thought I would because I hated Man of Steel. But there was too much. It was trying to do too much, and it was just convoluted, and I can't go into too many details because I don't feel like it. But I will say this: I almost fell asleep during the final act. That should tell you something.
Yeah, the internet hasn't been very kind to it.
No. I think the reason I almost fell asleep is because Zack Snyder's style just puts me to sleep because it's so slick and so choreographed. It just doesn't feel... There's no weight to it. I just feel like I'm watching a cutscene in a video game or something, and I don't know.
I don't know, but I'm going to take your word for it.
All right. But anyway, it was fine. Go see it if you're interested. But
yeah, I wasn't going to see it before, and I'm not going to see it now. Maybe when it comes out on video, I might watch it.
Good for you.
Yeah,
I think that's a good
stick
plan.
to my guns here.
Yep.
I am going to go see Ratchet and Clank, the movie, though.
Yeah, I want to see that.
Hey, doesn't that come out sometime in April?
The game comes out April 12th. I don't know when the movie comes out. Might be the same day.
Cool.
I don't know.
So it's on the horizon.
It's on Dark Souls 3-day.
That's the game or
the game? Yeah. The game comes out the same day as Dark Souls.
Yeah, I knew that. Cool.
Yep.
All
so,
right.
Singularity.
Singularity.
All right, Jeremy. What is Singularity?
Spoilers, first and foremost.
Yep, spoilers. There's going to be spoilers. This is a pretty story-intensive game.
And usually I forget to say spoilers until I've already talked about half the plot, so this time
good
I
job.
remembered. So Singularity takes place in 2010 and 1955. The beginning of the game starts off with like a montage of war reel films from the end of World War II and builds up to kind of the Cold War era. The Russians have found a new element on this island called Katorga 12, and it's the only place known that this element is found. It's called E99.
I have to say just one thing.
Yes.
Katorga 12 is a pretty cool name for an island.
It is a pretty cool name for an island.
In a video game setting. Anyway, go ahead.
I kind of like that. So, like I said, it's kind of Cold War-centric in that early part. As I'm sure most people know, the Cold War had a lot to do with the nuclear standoff where the United States had developed, tested, and in fact used nuclear weapons. And Russia was looking for an answer to that. They found E99, and that was going to be their answer because it was much more powerful than uranium, plutonium, any of the things that the United States or anybody else had enriched at that point. So they start mining this island, Katorga 12. Eventually, there's a big catastrophe there, and basically the whole island blows up and it sinks. Then you kind of jump into the year 2010, or jump into the game itself, and you're like I don't know, probably a Marine, could be a Army person, but I'm thinking Marines. One of the United States spy satellites got wiped out by this big energy burst, so the Marines are sent to this area where it happened to investigate, and that's when you stumble across the island of Katorga 12, and you play as a guy named Nathaniel Renko?
Nate Renko.
Nate Renko. Anyway, as you're flying past it, there's another energy charge. It's almost like they actually call it, I think, an EMP blast in the game. So it takes down your chopper, and you end up on the island. You're trying to meet up with the rest of your team. And pretty early on, you start seeing flashes of time from long ago. And in a very BioShock sort of fashion, there's audio tapes you can play and listen to, and lots of those, reels that you can watch, and they show the concept of E99 and Katorga 12 in those childish, like Fallout, I guess, type videos,
yep.
Which are kind of neat, kind of cool. And you really do have to watch all those to really get the entire backstory, in my opinion. So anyway, you end up running into this room on this base on Katorga 12, and it's suddenly 1955, and there's this guy that's about to get burned to death, fall through the floorboards. And he begs you to save him. You save him. There's another guy behind the glass that's like telling you not to do it. And he ends up burning to death. So you save this guy, and then time flashes back and forth a few times, and eventually you end up in 2010 again. This person that you had saved has actually captured you, and you're one of the other Marines. And his name is...
I don't remember.
Dimitrov?
Yeah.
Nikolai
Dimitrov or something.
Nikolai Dimitrov, yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
I'm terrible with names. Essentially, by saving him, you made him this crazy dictator that's taken over the world using the power of E99. So you go through the game world, and you play, you advance as you would in any normal game. And eventually, you find another guy named Viktor Borisov. And as it turns out, he was the guy warning you not to save Dimitrov, but maybe I should have saved that towards the end. Anyway, you find the Singularity device, the time manipulation device it's called, and with it you can...
TMD.
The TMD, you can make time go forward. You can't actually make time go forward, but you can make any item that's charged, that's been exposed to E99, age really fast, so you can use it to crush things so that you can get around them, or by aging them, you basically crush them, I guess. Or to make safes really old so you can suddenly break into them easier. That part never made much sense to me. But,
yeah.
So anyway, you end up spending time with Borisov, and he's trying to teach you how to use the device and what you need to do to change the world history. And you end up hearing this, or finding a note or a journal from a group called Mir 12, and as long as you're in 1955, you can talk and interact with this girl named Catherine, I think.
Yeah, I think
and
so.
And she's there trying to help kind of guide you through. She's not there a lot, but she's a pretty cool character, if I remember right. I think I liked her quite a bit. And so we spend the rest of the game basically manipulating time, going back and forth from 1955 to 2010, and trying to stop Dimitrov from taking over the world. But then you get to the end. Do you remember the end, Daniel?
No, I never got to the end myself, so
really?
I've read about the end.
Okay.
So explain the end.
So there's three different
There's 3 different
endings to this
endings.
game, and none of them are what I would call optimal. The one that seems the most obvious is you get to where you need to be, the end of the game, and Demichov has Barisov. He's going to kill him, and Barisov tells you that if that happens, that he'll become, this world dictator, take over the world, use the power of E99 to control everybody and everything. So it
Right.
seems like the right thing to do is to kill Demichov. So if you shoot Demichov, you have to go back in time and stop him from. You can't save him in that fire that's early on in the game, and
Right.
and so you end up killing yourself in your past
You
life.
kill yourself.
So then what happens
Yeah.
is Barisov ends up becoming Demichov, more or less, and becomes this huge evil tyrant and takes over the world.
Right.
So the other option is to kill Barisov, and if you do that, Demichov tells you that you'll rule the world together. So when you do that, then you end up becoming like this horrible, evil dictator yourself. So that's not really the best option either. So the final option is to kill both of them. And if you do that, the power of E99 consumes you, and you still become a terrible world dictator person, if I remember right. So there's really no great ending to any of them. I mean, they're all cool endings, but there's no happy valley ending. You're not going to go home and live a happy life, pretty much no matter what.
There's no ending like in BioShock where the all the little sisters
Yeah.
praise you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they may praise you, but it's because they fear you, not because they like you.
It's a confusing plot.
It is kind of confusing.
There's a lot going on there.
The time manipulation stuff and just the altering of history. It really does kind of.
Yeah.
And it's not a very long game, so it's a lot of confusing plots in a very short amount of time, honestly.
Yeah. Like I said, I didn't finish it. I honestly can't remember what part I got to. I just remember a whole bunch of mutant monsters and fighting them and shooting them. But before we get into like the gameplay and everything, this game was developed by Raven Software. Raven has a long history in games. They were founded a little bit after id Software, and I remember reading that John Romero had taken a big interest in them because they were pretty close in proximity to where id was and where id operated for a while. And because they're out of Wisconsin, and id had an office in Wisconsin for a little while there. And they've made a ton of games, a lot of first-person shooters. They worked on a lot of ports of some other games. This was one of their only like original IPs that I know. I think I could be wrong, but this game was published by Activision and almost was canceled because I think it had a pretty troubled development. And then after it came out, it got mixed reviews, I think, and didn't sell well at all. And then Activision didn't close Raven. I don't know if they own Raven. They might now, but I'm not sure if they did at the time. So they wouldn't have closed them anyway. But they kind of just assigned them to a bunch of Call of Duty games as kind of support. And they worked on multiplayer maps and other modes for Call of Duty games. I think they did a lot of the zombie modes in some Call of Duty games. And now I've heard that they might actually be back making their own game, a new IP. That I've heard rumors about that, so that could be cool. That's exciting. Good for them that they are still kicking.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure they've been downsized a lot, and they mostly are working on small parts of Call of Duty. I mean,
yeah,
very small parts. So, But yeah,
Yeah,
they're a very old studio. I'm just looking at it. Their first game that they were part of development was in 1992.
yeah, they've been around quite a while. They made Hexen. That was their first game, I believe. Right?
Hexen, well, the first credit they have on their Wikipedia page is Black Crypt in 1992.
Okay.
Hexen is 95.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
They did
And
2006 Marvel Ultimate Alliance. I actually really liked that game.
yep, they did that. And they did the
Yep,
Wolfenstein game
2009.
that came
Yeah,
out. Not the most recent Wolfenstein, but the
2009 one.
2009 one,
Yeah,
which a lot of people didn't like, but a lot of people also did like. So that game's kind of like Singularity.
correct.
Some people really liked it, and a lot of others didn't. So Jeremy, I didn't finish Singularity for a reason. I didn't really love Singularity.
That's fair. I had a lot of fun playing it. I like time manipulation games, so I just enjoyed it. So what didn't you love about it? Can you narrow it down?
Yeah, I think it was mostly the combat. There were too many instances where, and watching a lot of Let's Plays to catch up on what happened later in the game that I missed, this continued. There were so many scenes where they would just like trap you in an area and just flood enemies
Swarm
in
you, yeah.
over and over. And that's my least favorite thing to do in a video game.
Especially when
So
you're not playing horde mode or something. Yeah, I remember that. I remember having some frustration getting through some of those areas.
yeah, they were super frustrating because you could just get overwhelmed pretty easily, and they would just do that all the time, and it wasn't even to the point where it like was frustrating. It just got to the point where it was predictable and boring after that. Like after too many times doing it, and I didn't really have a lot of fun. I just the they're really well known for first person shooters, but for whatever reason, I didn't feel like the combat in that game was very smooth or a lot of fun to play. Personally, I played it on Xbox 360, so I was playing with a controller, but it was one of the few times where I was playing with a controller that I was wishing that I was playing with a mouse and keyboard. Did you play with mouse and keyboard or controller?
Controller. I played it on
Okay.
PlayStation 3.
You don't typically play with mouse and keyboard anyway, right?
No,
On
not
PC?
not even when I play on PC.
Yeah.
I don't have the dexterity for it, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I grew up playing shooters on PC and played I played GoldenEye and stuff on N64, but I played a lot of shooters on PC with mouse and keyboard, and I'm not a mouse and keyboard elitist, but just I never felt like the controls were precise enough or that I had, I feel like there's a certain amount of slight auto aim or at least aim assistance
Mm-hmm.
that console games kind of first person shooters kind of require. Sometimes you don't even notice that it's there, but it's there.
Yeah, that's all pretty much always there.
And I don't remember Singularity having that, and so I always felt like one step behind with the controls in that game. And I don't that's probably a really stupid complaint to have, that I just wasn't good enough at the game. But I was bad at this game, and I never liked shooting things in that game, and that's most of what you do, other than some time manipulation puzzles and stuff.
Yeah.
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 But there are some really cool parts about it. What I really liked was the setting. Although it was Unreal Engine 3, so it
Yeah.
was in that time period where the graphics were all gray and
It kind of
brown.
looked like ass, to be honest.
Yeah.
And it hasn't aged well.
No, it has not aged well. But I did like what they were trying to do with the setting and to set up that whole scenario in that island and tell you the history of the island while also like having you manipulate that history, and how you could come into an area and then all of a sudden it would get like, you could change it in reverse time and you'd see the area when it wasn't run down and grungy anymore, and you see it beautiful and pristine, which was really cool.
If
It's a
you
cool
took the
concept.
time to when it had those flashback moments, to listen to those and read their notes on the walls and look for all the dossiers and read those and listen to all the audio tapes and look at all the projector things and then those things that you just stuck your eyes in for whatever. I don't know why they had those on the projectors. And listen to the Barasoff in particular. It actually had, I thought, a pretty cool story.
It did.
But I'm kind of a history buff, and I like that alternate, history that kind of melds in with real history, or as real as we'll ever going to know it.
Yeah.
So that might have been kind of one of the bigger things that attracted me to it. And I did suffer through the gameplay. I just kept, like you talked about how there'd be hordes of enemies. To begin with, that just didn't work that well in Unreal Engine 3. That's when it had the biggest frame rate issues.
Frame rate drops. Yep.
And also, you'd go through periods of the game where you wouldn't hardly see any enemies, and you'd get all kinds of ammo. And then when you actually needed it, it was really sparse. And I don't think it had. I mean, if it had aim assist, it wasn't like other type of games had aim assist. That's right. In those areas, those arena type areas where you're just killing massive mutated whatever, that you really had to take your time and shoot well, and that wasn't easy. Because they were coming at you from all directions. Otherwise, you were going to run out of ammo.
Exactly. So what did you love about it, though? Because I mean, you did really like it. So
well,
I wanna hear you sing its praises.
I don't know, honestly. Like I watched a lot of gameplay of it this last week. I watched through all the cutscenes twice, and I watched through an entire 4.5-hour play of the game, which is pretty impressive. They did it that fast. There's no way I could.
Wait, you played it all in 4.5 hours?
No, not me. I watched somebody play it. I watched a YouTube video of somebody doing it.
Nice. Okay.
But that was skipping as much stuff as we could.
That is impressive, though.
I don't really know what I love about it. I think at the time it was just fun, and it's been so long. Spoiler alert, I wouldn't call it one of the best games, period. It's not a game I think everybody should go out and play by any stretch.
All right.
But it was definitely one of my favorite games of that time. And I think maybe because everybody was crapping on it so much and I liked it, it may just be one of those things that I'm like, I'm going to like this game more no matter what. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because that does happen. Not just to me.
Yep. I hear you. I mean, it had cool ideas. Like I said, it kind of combined BioShock with Call of Duty, with a little bit of Half-Life in there, with like the puzzle solving, and your TMD even gets to a point where you can use it almost like a gravity gun.
Yeah, you upgrade it like 3 or 4 times, which is neat, which kind of keeps the gameplay somewhat fresh.
Well, that's another thing that I think you probably liked about it, is that it had a lot of RPG elements. You had a lot of options for upgrading.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all cool. I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff in this game, and if you like those kind of games, give it a shot, and just go buy it at GameStop for $2 or whatever it would cost nowadays.
Yeah, it can't be that expensive.
Try it out. So can you explain to me? I know you explained the story.
Okay.
So what ending did you get?
Well, I ended up doing all 3, but the first one I ever picked was the one where you shoot Demichov and go back and don't rescue him and kill yourself.
Okay.
And that's
I feel like that's maybe the best ending.
Well, that one had the most detail in it, because after that, it starts off the way the game starts off when you're flying in those marine helicopters and you're flying over the island and you're kind of expecting it to be I don't know, different. But in the opening of the first game, when you're doing that part, you fly by this statue of Lenin, right?
Yeah.
Or might be Stalin, I'm not too sure which one. Just barely sticking up out of the water.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how you notice that you're in the right area. And the first epilogue, after if you kill Demichov, you're doing that same thing, and you're flying past it. You're flying through that area, and you're basically having the same conversation that you had with the other person in the helicopter.
Yep.
Except you fly by this thing, and it's just a hammer and sickle sticking up out of the water off of some unknown statue. Like, you can't really see the head.
Oh.
And the one guy says something like, "Hey, how about that?" And then he says something, "It's good to see, like, something still standing, comrade." And you're just like, "What? That's not the way. No, 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 that's not what I wanted." So then it goes into where it shows the map and how Russia has pretty much taken over the entire world and spread out, so on and so forth, including America, obviously. Um, so that's the ending I chose. I didn't like it, so I tried the second one. I didn't like that, so I tried the third one, and I didn't really like any of them. So at least I got trophies for them, I guess.
Yeah. There you go. You didn't have to play through the whole game again just to try and
No, you could just load the last.
Played from a save state.
Yeah, it's even after the last boss fight. I mean, it's after everything.
So, what was your favorite moment in the game? If you can remember.
Probably. So there's a part where, like, you remember I referenced Catherine earlier.
Yep.
You have to go on this ship to find something. I forget what it is. And she ends up, like, getting lost and kind of has a Titanic moment where she's, like, floating out and you can't get her. And you never really ever find out what happens to her until much later on in the game. You find out that, because, all that stuff happens in 1955, that she somehow did make it back, and she's the one that left you the original journal about Mir 12, who was supposed to try to help you and warn you about this stuff.
Okay.
But then you don't really ever find out what happened to her after that. So, I don't know, that kind of stood out to me how they tied that all back together, I guess. I was kind of pissy that I never saw her again. I felt like it was a loose end, but then it tied it up in a roundabout way.
Right.
I guess that's the one story moment that stood out. Probably the gameplay moments that stand out are just using the TMD to solve different puzzles. I thought that was pretty fun, to advance to different areas. And I like time manipulation games. I don't know why. I just do.
What's cool is that, like, you could manipulate objects. So, like, say you see, like, destroyed first aid kit. Mm-hmm. You can reverse time on that first aid kit, and then you open it up and there's first aid in there that you can use. And which is really cool.
And you actually have to do that. And there's also, like, a lot of the audio files, the audio tapes are ruined, so you got to reverse time on those.
Right.
The one cool gameplay mechanic that you can do with the TMD is you can make people age instantly and die. But you must not be able to do that all the time, otherwise you would just do that the entire game. I mean, like, there's a certain amount before. I don't know if there was a gauge or something.
I thought you could do that to everybody. You would know better than I would.
Well, so. I mean, it seems like if you could, I wouldn't have had as hard of a time in those. Maybe you couldn't do it to the mutants.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe you could only do it to the modern soldiers. Or the 1955 soldiers. Because, like, when you first rescue Barisov, that's when you first really get that ability. It's like the first upgrade on the TMD. And you use it to kill the first couple that are right around him. But it seems to me after that, you had to actually have a firefight. So, I don't remember specifically. Listeners, if you know, please let us know.
Yeah. Did you play any of the...
multiplayer?
Multiplayer, yeah.
You know me, I'm not a big multiplayer guy. I did play a few rounds. There was only like 2 modes, which was basically deathmatch and defend, I guess, for the generic terms. And you didn't get to pick what side you're on. You're either the creatures or the humans. I suck at multiplayer, so I rarely judge a game by the multiplayer. But as I recall, it wasn't terrible.
Well, that's one thing that I don't even remember this game having multiplayer, so I obviously didn't play it. But, so, in researching it, I learned all about the multiplayer, and it's actually a really cool concept for multiplayer. It's too bad that it didn't do better, because it sounds like it would have been really fun.
I think I played just enough matches to get the Platinum Trophy.
Of course.
Yeah, if I even have the Platinum Trophy for this game. I know I tried for it. Maybe the multiplayer was one of those ridiculous... There are some games, especially way back in the day, that getting the Platinum Trophy was just ridiculous because of the level of multiplayer you had to end up at sometimes.
They would add a lot of multiplayer junk in there.
Like, I think it was Resistance 2 that you had to be, like, ranked top 5 in the world for a week for one of the trophies. It's like,
I heard that.
My God.
That's absurd.
Yeah.
Like, don't do that.
No.
No.
And you can play any Telltale game, and as long as you finish the story, you're going to get a Platinum Trophy. But this was when trophies were still fairly new, I guess. Because remember, PS3 didn't have them at first.
Right. No, yeah. Do you remember a time when PS3 didn't have trophies? Because I don't, because I never cared.
Oh, yeah, it didn't have them all the way through... Geez, I want to say, like, maybe 2009. Are you joking? Are you messing with me?
No, I'm being serious.
No, like to this day, Metal Gear Solid 4 still doesn't even have trophies.
Oh, right. See? Yeah. Metal Gear Solid 4 doesn't.
Yep. But I want to say it was sometime around 2000, middle of 2008 or 2009 that they ended up getting them.
Okay.
Or it might have even been a little bit later. I mean, it was a good year and a half after it released.
Side note, did you hear the Game Informer podcast with a bunch of Metal Gear Solid voice actors?
No, but I read the article about David Hayter not wanting to play Metal Gear Solid 5.
Yeah, did you? And I guess he has no love lost for Hideo Kojima, which is interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know Kojima, obviously.
Yeah, I don't know him personally either.
But I don't think it's a stretch to think that he can be a pompous ass to work with. I mean, honestly, right. I'm not excusing Konami or anything like that, but yeah, I can see how the guy could be difficult to work with.
I will say, we did not know the whole story with the Konami Kojima beef.
Well, no,
really.
That's kind of why I thought it was ridiculous, and everybody just jumped all over them without knowing anything.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, to learn that he had to audition every time, and that they Kojima was pretty much looking for any excuse to give the role to somebody else.
Yeah.
It was kind of weird. And then to find out over, what was it, a drink at an airport or something, that they're going a different route for 5. Well, yep. Ground zeros, I guess, technically. That's just kind of I mean, nobody owes anybody anything in any industry, but out of professional courtesy, there's a way to go about doing things.
And I mean, I can understand if Kojima, it's his series. If he didn't like David Hayter in that role anymore, then fine. But
yeah,
I guess somebody who was playing that role for as long as he was and was known as that character deserved a heads up.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Some professional
head-to-head conversation. Yeah. That's too bad.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to Singularity.
Yeah. So, Daniel, are you going to call this one of your best games, period?
No. I can't.
Cool.
I didn't like it. And the thing is, it's a game that I think has so many elements that I appreciate. There's so many things in Singularity.
Would you say there's at least 99 elements?
99. Yep. 99 elements and oxygen ain't one. All right. So BioShock-esque setting and story. It's got time manipulation. It's got this time hopping story, which is, sounds cool. And all the concepts. It's sci-fi. It's a shooter, which I could play any shooter. Like I will just play a shooter, and it doesn't have to be amazing. I'll just play through it just because. But it just never, the story never really got its hooks into me the way I would have wanted it to. But then too, like I said, just the shooting and the gameplay turned me off so much that I didn't want to continue playing.
It does have a couple pretty cool weapons, like the gun where you steer the bullet.
Yep.
It's kind of neat. And the revolver where instead of adding new bullets, you just throw the entire cylinder away and pop a new one in. That's pretty interesting. Seems kind of like an expensive way to reload, but whatever. Yeah, I don't know. It's not one of my best games, period. I'm not going to suggest everybody go out and play it. It's not a must-play. But if you got a PS3 and you're looking for a cheap game to play, like Daniel said, go to GameStop, get a copy, give it a shot. Why not?
Yeah. If you're still booting up your PS3 or your Xbox 360, give it a shot. Try it out. I don't think it's on PlayStation
It
now.
is on Steam now. It's probably really cheap. And, you know, one of the interesting things I saw when looking at the scores for this game is on Steam it's got an average 9 out of 10 rating, whereas Metacritic is 7.5. So, I don't know if they added something to it on Steam or what, but
I think it's more liked by fans than critics.
Yeah, or maybe it could be something like you said. It's better played with mouseboard and keyboard and mouse.
Mouse and keyboard.
Yes.
Yeah, it probably is. And I'm sure it looks better as well.
Yeah.
Because boy, did it not look great.
No.
Or at the time, it looked okay, but now it does not.
Yeah, even at the time, if I remember, it didn't look the best, but it was.
No.
I mean, a lot of games didn't at that point, right?
True.
So.
But like BioShock was on Unreal Engine 3, and it still looks great. I mean, it doesn't look nearly as impressive as I thought it looked back then, but it's still a pretty game to look at, and I think that's all chalked up to the art style, which I think Singularity just didn't. The art style just wasn't as interesting to me.
I would agree.
Yep.
Well, should we put a bow on this puppy?
We should, but we also should talk about what game we're going to do next week. We haven't decided what game we're going to talk about next week.
This is true.
And I think we had some discussions about it, but we never fully declared a game. So on April 12th, which will be soon after the episode we put out next week, there are two big games coming out. Dark Souls 3 and Ratchet & Clank Remake. People are going to be talking about Dark Souls 3 for quite a while.
Yeah.
So we thought maybe we could do a Demon Souls episode. But my suggestion is because Ratchet & Clank's also coming out that day, and it's a direct remake of the original.
Okay.
I thought we could talk about the first Ratchet & Clank.
I would be good with that.
Have you played that?
The very first one, I have not. I've played pretty much all of them except that one.
Ah, shoot.
But that's okay.
Well, hopefully Jack has.
Oh, I'll play I'm definitely going to play it on the 12th.
Yep. All right.
Yeah, I love that series. And the only reason I never played the first one is, I don't know, was that included in the Ratchet & Clank collection?
Yeah.
Then I've played it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. And then I've played them all, Daniel. I've even played the booty one.
I have not played a single one yet.
Since the first one?
No, I haven't even played the first one.
Oh.
But I want to know more about it, and I want to see more of it. And I think it might be on PlayStation now, so...
it's got to be.
I could be wrong, but I think it might be. Or it might be... crap. I don't think it's one of the PS2 games that works on PS4. I don't know. Somehow I will get my hands on it, and I will play it, because I want to play it.
Yeah, it's got to be on PlayStation now.
Or
Yeah,
I'll at
it's a
least
great
watch
series.
a ton of Let's Plays.
It's cool. I mean, it's like Resistance 3, except cartoony, if
Yeah.
that makes any sense.
If you are an expert in Ratchet and Clank, let us know. Maybe we could have you on the show because we are looking for some more guests to have on the show. As long as you are very knowledgeable about a game, then we would love to have you on the show. So that was episode 18. I almost just said of the Jacked Up Indian Mojo show, but that's not what this show is called anymore. This show is The Best Games, period. So, Jeremy.
Daniel?
I just want to thank you for coming on the show.
Well, you're welcome.
Like, you're contractually obligated to.
Yeah. I have a clause that says I can't miss anymore, so.
We bought you that Rolls Royce, so you kind of have to.
I'd be rolling in style.
And thank you, good listeners, for listening to The Best Games, period.
Is this the first time that nobody's called a game one of the best games, period?
No, I don't think so. I think Little Big Planet.
Was there any when all three of us were on?
Final Fantasy 12.
Okay, yeah. So
Yep.
This isn't even close to the first one.
Nope.
What am I thinking? Crazy mojo.
So it was those two, Little Big Planet and Final Fantasy 12.
Alrighty.
But like those games, if you are a fan of the genre, Singularity is definitely worth playing. You can let us know what you think of Singularity on Twitter at bestgamesperiod. You can also comment when we post the episodes on Game Informer on Jack's blog. You can comment on Extra Life, which, by the way, if you have not signed up for Extra Life for this year, it's never too early to sign up. Sign up for Extra Life. You can raise money anytime. And the big marathon will be later this year. I don't know the exact dates. But definitely sign up for Extra Life to raise money for the Children's Miracle Network. If you have not signed up yet, extralife.org. That's extra-life.org. And you can find this episode there on the blog. Jack posts it every Monday, along with the Game Informer blog and the downloads on iTunes, SoundCloud, and if we're lucky, as long as there's no copyright strike, typically the episodes go up on YouTube as well. You can comment there also. You can like the videos, like the podcast, subscribe if you don't subscribe already, and share it with your friends because we'd love to have more listeners. We're doing more and more numbers every week, so we're not just shouting into a void, so that's awesome. We're really happy to have the people listening that we do have listening. We would just love to have some more. And until next week, when we cover the original Ratchet and Clank from Insomniac Games, I'm Daniel Jones with Jeremy Brown. Jack should be back next week, so watch out for the best games, period. Till next time.
Oh, are we supposed to be recording that?